Most respected Thai, dear Sangha, dear friends, today is the 11th of June in the year 2023, and we are in London in the Conway Hall, I think it's called, yeah, and we have a day of mindfulness for our friends in London. So we're all very happy to be here with you. And we're going to begin with 3 sounds of the bell. The sound of the bell, we say, is the voice of the Buddha within us. We all have the Buddha within us. A Buddha means the awakened one. We all have the capacity to wake up. And that when we hear the sound of the bell, that capacity to wake up in us is awakened, and we come back to our true home. And our true home is also available right here and right now within us, not somewhere else. So I listen. This wonderful sound brings me back to my true home. 3 breaths at least for each sound of the bell. You will have at least 9 mindful breaths. So, dear friends, when you come back to your true home, you meet your ancestors. It is also your ancestral home. And you know that if it were not for your blood ancestors and your spiritual ancestors, those 2 rivers that always flow in you, you would not be here. In fact, you are just a manifestation of all your blood ancestors, all your spiritual ancestors. And many of them you did not even know. So that from your mother you receive a 50% of your chromosome, from your father 50%. But your father and your mother, they received the chromosome from their mother and father, and it goes on and on like that. So you don't always know exactly who your ancestors are. But you know that in the present moment, you are representing them. You are like an ambassador who is sent to the foreign country to represent his country or her country. And you are like that, representing your ancestors. And of course, you want to represent your ancestors, just like if you were an ambassador, you want to represent your country in a positive way. So in order to represent our ancestors in a positive way, we need to know how to water the positive seeds in our consciousness. And our ancestors have all known anxiety. And that anxiety of our ancestors, we carry it in ourselves now. And we may think that this is just my anxiety. But when you practice meditation and you look deeply, you will see that it isn't just your anxiety. It is the anxiety of your ancestors, and it is also the anxiety of your collective consciousness in the present moment. So in our tradition, we normally represent consciousness with a diagram, which I will try and show to you on the board. So this diagram, it has it has three parts. It has one part here, this line is another part, and this is another part. And it represents our consciousness, your consciousness, everyone's consciousness. And here we say that this part of our consciousness, we call it the mind consciousness. Mind consciousness. And this part here, which is much, much bigger than this part, is not a very correct scale, this diagram. This part is very, very, very big. But it won't fit on this board. So we call it store. And then there has to be something that divides our everyday mind from the store. And that we call the well, we can call it the always thinking consciousness. We can call it the I-making consciousness. It has many names. We can call it the lover, because it has fallen in love with the store. But it's only fallen in love with a small part of the store. And it takes that small part of the store and it calls it I. And then the mind consciousness, it gets the message, and it also calls it I, me, mine, I. So I'm not going to write on the board what we call this, but you can remember. I making, always thinking. So here we have all the seeds which are able to grow in the garden which is here. This is like the earth, and this is like your garden. And in the earth of your garden, every kind of seed is there. But you choose, don't you? You choose which ones you want and which ones you don't want. So you just write some little seeds, huh? And this morning, when you practiced the guided meditation before we began, you learned to recognize this is my in-breath and this is my out-breath. And the idea of that guided meditation is that you concentrate on your in-breath and your out-breath, so that this always thinking consciousness has a chance to rest. So that is called the seed of mindfulness. And that seed, it can manifest as a flower. When you breathe in and out, and you know that you're breathing in and breathing out. And there are other ways to help that seed of mindfulness to manifest as a flower. And another way is to use your feet and the contact between your Mother Earth and your feet. I am in love with Mother Earth. How are you going to express your love for your Mother Earth? Of course, Mother Earth is all around you. It's not just under your feet, but it's also the delicate layer of atmosphere, the clouds. But now I'm expressing my love with my feet. And what am I walking on? I'm walking on wood. So you may say that is not earth, it's wood. But in fact, the wood comes from a tree. And the tree is a child of Mother Earth. So the tree has to contain Mother Earth. And if I want to express my love with my feet, then I have to feel Mother Earth under my feet. And I ask her, would you like a massage? And I massage her gently with my footsteps. And when we teach the children how to walk mindfully on the earth, we teach them when you breathe in, you say yes. 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 You say yes to Mother Earth. And then when you breathe out, you say thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Because Mother Earth is the source of my life. So when I practice like this, I am mindful of my feet, and my feet, the sensation in my feet, it makes me mindful of Mother Earth and makes me mindful of my love for Mother Earth. And love is another of these seeds. So when mindfulness can bloom as a flower, then love can also bloom as a flower. And there are other seeds too. And there is the seed of anxiety. And as we said before, anxiety is coming from many ancestors. You think about even the ancestors that you knew or that you've learned about in history. Even if you just think about your human ancestors, and then later on we can think about our other animal. We are animals, sorry. Other animal species. What did Lynn Margulis say? She said something like, we classify the human beings as a separate animal species. But in fact, we are more like other primates, who we say are animals, than two species of beetles are like each other, or something like that. So out of our ignorance, we classify ourselves as something rather special, which, well, anyway, we are a primate, an animal. And we have all those animal ancestors also. But now we are talking about our human ancestors. That is, ancestors who have a lot of neocortex. And thanks to that neocortex, we can develop the seed of anxiety till it becomes very important. But we must understand where it comes from. And the anxiety is, am I able to survive? That is our deep anxiety for our continued survival. There were times when your ancestors had to worry about whether they had enough food for the children in the family. Maybe in your own lifetime, there has not been that worry about having enough food. So, your ancestors had to always be doing something, say that they were working on the land. They always need to be doing something either to make, to plant the seed, or to take care of the seeds, cultivate the land, or harvest the seed, and after harvest have to find a way to conserve what has been harvested, and always need to be doing something. And if not doing something, then a kind of anxiety arises. If I'm not doing something, then we will not have enough food. So that is one basis of our anxiety. And it's not only anxious for ourselves, but also anxious for our children. And this anxiety is handed down. So one time in Plum Village, we had the summer opening, which we have every summer. We still have it. Now for 40 years we have had the summer opening in Plum Village. This will be the 41st year that we have that opening, when everyone with their family can come and practice. And during that summer opening, we have a special ceremony, a special, what do we call? Not ceremony, what do we call? Anyway, we have a special thing we do together, huh? And festival, thank you. We have a special festival. And during that festival, we commemorate our gratitude. We have gratitude to our parents, our teachers, our friends, and so on. And each country, because in Plum Village we have so many countries that are represented, sometimes as many as 40 different nationalities come to that festival. And during that time, we divide ourselves into our country, and each country will make a special dish to represent their ancestors from their country. Food is very important. Yeah. Part of our identity. And there's nothing wrong with that. So then we have to go, we delegate one member of our family to go shopping if we don't have the ingredients to be able to make the dish that we need. So the family from the United States, they did not have all the ingredients. So they have to send one member of their family to the supermarket. I don't know if you agree with supermarkets. Probably nowadays we don't agree with that, but anyway. So once in the supermarket, that young student of mindfulness found that he lost all his mindfulness. A supermarket atmosphere is not the best one for supporting our practice of mindfulness. Our mindful breathing, our mindful steps, we need to be very firm in that practice. And he was a new one, so he was not so firm. But it didn't last for very long. And then suddenly he remembered, I've forgotten. That is what mindfulness means, actually. It means remembering that I have forgotten. So he remembered he'd forgotten his practice. And he came back, he breathed, and he said, "Oh, hello, Mummy." Because he recognized that when his mother went to the supermarket, she also lost her mindfulness. Yeah. And she didn't manage to find it again. Because that anxiety that is passed down from past generations, that we have to have enough food, it comes up in the supermarket. And it makes us chase around and go quickly and forget who we really are. So listen, this wonderful sound. That sound, actually nobody invited the bell. But that seed of mindfulness, for some reason, it was watered. And he said, "Hello, Mummy." And that is not to accuse his mother or to blame his mother. We don't blame our ancestors for our unskillful states of mind. That is something we should never do. But we should look on our ancestors with compassion, because we recognize that when I lose my mindfulness like that, then I suffer. And my mother, she also suffers when she loses her mindfulness. So rather than feeling anger, we feel compassion, and we want to send our love to our mother, to our ancestors. So an anxiety is one of those seeds. And in our practice, we recognize when anxiety comes up in us. It doesn't matter what it is about. Sometimes we don't even know what our anxiety is about. We feel anxious, but we don't know why do I feel anxious. And so you have to name it, I feel anxious. That is quite scientific, that you don't know why you feel anxious. If you look at a bird who is sitting quite peacefully on a branch of a tree, you will see that from time to time the bird look around just to make sure that everything is okay. And it seems that we have a mechanism, a part of our brain, that tells us, are you sure everything is okay? And every so often that mechanism will incite us to, as it were, look around and make sure everything is okay. And that is, we could call it a kind of anxiety, but we don't know why. It's just we think, oh, I haven't been anxious for the past 2 hours. It's about time I felt anxiety again. So we have to recognize that, and we have to say, my dear one, there is nothing to be anxious about in the present moment. Come back to the present moment with the help of your breathing and your steps, and you will see there's nothing to be anxious about now. For instance, if you feel something not quite right in your body, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, I think you better have some tests, and then you have the tests, and then you have the result, and when you are waiting for the result, anxiety comes up. And then when you get the result, either you feel, okay, nothing wrong, good, and you have a few hours or a few days without anxiety, with a kind of relief. But on the other hand, the result is not what you wanted, and then you feel anxiety a lot there. What is going to happen? Now I have this illness. And so this is what normally happens to all of us when we have a result that we have some serious illness in our body, that we feel very anxious. And of course, the feeling of anxiety is not going to help us get better. And then if we if we practice mindfulness, we will be able to overcome that anxiety. We will be able to embrace the fact that we have some serious condition, and we will be able to accept that we have that condition. And with that acceptance, there comes a relief. And that relief that we feel when we can accept what is not going right in our body is much greater than the relief we feel when we get the result of our test. Because when we get the result that, oh, everything's okay, we feel, oh, that's good. But in the back of our mind, we think, well, it's okay this time, but what about in 2 years' time, 3 years' time? It may not be okay. So we don't really have a way to deal with our anxiety. But when we are able to accept, yes, that is how it is, and I can live with this, and I can have peace of mind with this situation. I can face it. I can still enjoy this, and this. I still have 2 good eyes that can enjoy the blue sky, and with 2 ears that can enjoy the sound of the bird song, and I feel that is my happiness. So with that acceptance, we can know that even if we get another result that isn't good, we can still have that capacity in us to accept. So in our practice of mindfulness, we have a practice that is called the 5 remembrances. Just things to remind ourselves about. The Buddha said that it's teaching of the Buddha said that my teachings are like a snake, a poisonous snake. You have to know how to catch the snake in the right way. Otherwise, you will get bitten, and that is very serious because it's a very poisonous snake. So someone who doesn't know how to catch a snake goes into the forest and sees a snake and grabs hold of its tail. And the snake turns around and bites that person. So that is not the way to catch a snake. But someone who knows how to catch a snake, they have a forked stick and they put it behind the head of the snake. And then they grab the snake behind the head, and the snake cannot bite them and put it in the box. So I don't think many spiritual teachers would compare their teachings to a poisonous snake. But the Buddha did, because the Buddha saw that many people, they get the teachings of the Buddha in the wrong way, and it does them more harm than it does good. So please be careful whenever you listen to Buddhist teachings, the way you catch them. So this teaching on the 5 remembrances is a teaching for us to be able to touch our anxiety and to be able to accept and embrace our anxiety. So the first thing I remind myself, and so I said it's a snake, don't do this if you are not physically strong or psychologically strong. It's better to do something the opposite. But if you are strong enough and you have anxiety, this is a way to take care of your anxiety. First thing, I am of the nature to grow old. And if you're already old, don't say, I'm already old, I don't need to do that, because you will get older. Tomorrow you will be older and older and older. So until you die, and that's another thing you have to remind yourself about. Yeah, so one time I taught this, and the people said to me, "But I'm old already." I said, "You have to do it all the same." So if you're in your 70s, then you need to do it when you're in your 90s. Huh? You will see that you will be in a more decrepit state when you're in your 90s than you are when you're in your 70s. So the first thing, and you really have to see that I am of the nature to grow old. Yes, that is something very natural, and you cannot avoid it. But we don't like to think about it, because when we think about it, we will be anxious. But now we tell ourselves, think about it, you will be old. Yeah, it's not very pleasant. And you see your anxiety, and you embrace your anxiety, and you accept, yes, this is a fact, I will grow old. That is the first remembrance. The second remembrance, I am of the nature to have ill health. There is no way I can escape ill health. So that is also not very pleasant to think about. You're in the hospital and it's not very nice, and you're, maybe unconscious or whatever. And then you see your anxiety about that state. And then you can accept that, embrace that, and overcome your anxiety. One time I was quite sick, and I was complaining to the healthcare worker who took care of me. And she said, "I thought that in the monastery every day you meditated on, I am of the nature to get sick. There is no way I can escape getting sick." So then that was a real wake-up for me, because you can do this meditation, and it's just a matter of words. It doesn't really go very deep, and then when you do get sick, you don't like it. And then the next one is, I am of the nature to die. There is no way to escape death. And deep down, we have a very deep fear of death. You may say, "Oh, I'm not afraid of dying." But we have to have that fear. Otherwise, we would do many silly things in our daily life that would lead to our early death, and our species will have died out a long time ago. Well, not very long ago, because our species hasn't been there for very long. But so we need to accept we have that fear. But we need to look deeply and see that we don't really need to nourish ourselves with that fear every day. Or, what is even worse, every time that fear starts coming up in us, to do an avoidance strategy. So that is another thing that we as human beings have found many ways. And those who are in advertising companies, those who make the advertisements, they are very clever. They know that human beings want to avoid unpleasant things like old age. So they advertise in such a way that will pull us out of our fear in a very artificial way that doesn't last. So why don't you get in your wonderful car that you just bought and drive somewhere else just to remove the fear? Do you know the little poem, Before You Drive Your Car? Huh? Before I start my car. You haven't started it yet, but now it's very easy to start. You don't have to turn the key anymore. Huh? But when this poem was written, you had to turn the key. Before I start the car, I know where I am going. That means that we ask ourselves the question, do I really need to drive somewhere? Or can I go to my little breathing corner in my flat, or go to the nearby park on foot and practice mindful walking and mindful breathing to deal with my fear rather than driving somewhere? Mother Earth, I love you, I don't want to drive unnecessarily. Before I start the car, I know where I am going. I really have to go there. I really have to drive to go there. If the car goes fast, I go fast. That is just to remind me that my life depends on my mindful driving, not driving too far. So we may take that route, or there's many other routes of avoidance. One is open the refrigerator and find something sweet to eat. No, you say, no, I'm not going to go that path. I'm going to go to the park for a walk. I'm going to go to my breathing corner for mindful breathing, and then I can take care of my anxiety. And the seed of my anxiety won't have to fight to come up, because sometimes the store down here, imagine it's the basement of your house and there's a hatch. And the seed of anxiety, it wants to come up. And you push the hatch down, you say, no, you can't come up. Turn on the television, I don't know, have a telephone conversation. There are so many things. Pick up a book, pick up a magazine. All these things, they will help us avoid really being in touch with my anxiety. Everything I cherish, everyone I love, is of the nature to change, and I shall have to be separated from them. That is a meditation we can do on our loved ones, because sometimes we think, I'm not afraid of dying, but I'm really afraid of the person I loved most dying. And we have to deal with that anxiety also. In Plum Village, we sometimes have a wedding ceremony. It's really a blessing ceremony. It's not a complete wedding. And two people who want to make the commitment to spend their whole life together, they will make a ceremony like that with our support. And at the end of the ceremony, Thầy, our teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh, would say, now ask each other, where do you come from, my loved one? And where are you going? So the question, where are you going? We think about the future, where are we going? Well, in the historical dimension, there is only one place we can go, and that is the crematorium or the burial ground. Yeah. And the same is true for our loved one. So we need to recognize that is where I shall go first, or maybe you will go first, and accept that anxiety we have about our loved one. And now we have collective anxiety, a real anxiety that we are going to destroy life on our dear Mother Earth. And Mother Earth is alive at the moment, is breathing, is made of air, fire, earth, water, space, and consciousness. Is alive and breathing. And we, her children, the human species, are still not extinct yet. But if we look deeply, if we rely on the scientists who have practiced looking deeply, and we know that our situation now is extremely precarious. And if we are to ignore, if we are breathing in and out, if we are to ignore that precarious situation that we are in, it is like I said, it's like when you feel anxiety come up, what do? You drive off somewhere, you take out your cell phone, you call someone, you open the refrigerator, but you do something to say, okay, you stay down there. We don't want to do that. We have to accept that we are very anxious. But we have to know that do not let ourselves be consumed by anxiety, because that is not good for our human species to water the seed of anxiety. If we water the seed of anxiety in ourselves, we water it in the collective consciousness. The store consciousness is not just individual, it is collective. We also water the anxiety in our ancestors' consciousness. So we need to find another way. And now, when we can talk about 6 remembrances. The human species is impermanent. Every species is impermanent. We don't want it. It's a very young species. It's the very, very young. We don't want it to have that very short lifespan. Somebody did a 24-hour clock of the time that Mother Earth has been in existence. That is 4.5 billion years. Then you do a 24-hour clock, and I'm not a mathematician, I don't know if somebody is, but 24 hours equals 4.5 billion. And then you mark out how long dinosaurs and then you ask the human species, and then the clock has gone all the way around, and it's about, I don't know, some seconds before midnight or something. Yeah, just nearly the end of the 4.5. Well, if it's the end, it shouldn't be the end. Then that is the human species. So we are the very, very young species, and we need to develop a lot more. We are on our path to develop. We're not very developed yet. So let's hope that we can become something different from Homo sapiens. Now we call ourselves sapiens. Sapiens, it means wise. I don't know if we need to put a question mark after that, but But now we can call ourselves, we would like to develop in another kind of homo. And we can call it homo conscious. conscius. And that means the mindful man. Because when we practice mindfulness, we will be able to take care of our seeds in our consciousness. We will take care of the seeds in the collective consciousness, and we will have some kind of future. But anyway, it's not sure that that will happen. Huh? We just don't know what's going to happen. One time the Buddha was teaching some young people, and he was teaching about practicing the 5 mindfulness trainings. That is, practicing an ethical way of life. What we mean by an ethical way of life, we mean a way of life that causes as little suffering as we can cause. But obviously we're going to cause suffering, we can't help it. When you say that you are vegan, oh, I'm 100% vegan. No. You may say like that. But you look and you see that when the farmer had to cultivate your rice, there must have been many little insects that died. And when you pick your vegetables in the garden and you wash them under the tap, there are also little beings that die. So I cannot be too sure that I am 100% vegan. But nevertheless, I do my best to be vegan, plant-based, because I know that is the kindest thing I can do for Mother Earth and also for all the human species and other animal species that live on Mother Earth. So anyway, that is about protecting life. And then the next thing is about contentment, satisfaction with what we have so that we don't have to exploit others unnecessarily. Huh? And the third thing is about integrity in our relationships, in our physical, emotional relationships. We do not cause suffering by our sexual relations. So that is something, third mindfulness training. And the fourth mindfulness training is about how I will not cause suffering by the way I speak. And the way I speak is closely related to the way I listen, because when I can really listen to you, then I will understand what is going on for you, and I won't say something that will hurt you. So now that we are talking about the fourth mindfulness training, I would like to mention something that is called polarization. And the first time I recognized polarization was when I was in the United Kingdom. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but the time for the campaign for getting out of the common market, European Union, called a Brexit. So then you have the people who really want us to get out, and the people who really want us to stay in, and you have what is called a polarization. Either you're on that side or you're on that side, and it's very harmful Because in the family, there are some people who want to, in your blood family, among your siblings, your blood siblings, there are people who want to stay in and there are people who want to stay out. And as soon as out of your mouth there's something about Brexit or not Brexit, something come out of your mouth and the other person will react. And so in that time, the best thing to do, and it happened with vaccination, with COVID, and many things that divide our families, and make it that the sisters and brothers in the same family, they don't want to speak to each other anymore. And so the thing we do as someone who is practicing the fourth mindfulness training, we practice listening deeply. And that person will say, oh, this is very bad, and that is very bad, and this. And then we say, we listen very deeply. And when we listen deeply like that, we can hear what the other person is saying, but we can also hear what is being left unsaid. And what is being left unsaid is the deep suffering of that person, something that happened in their life, something that makes them go in that direction of Brexit or non-Brexit. And we hear that. And then, if we're very skillful, we will use loving speech and we will say, my dear friend, I understand you. I also have that kind of suffering. And then we don't have, our family doesn't have to break up. But when you get together, don't talk about that kind of thing. Don't talk about things that you know will light up a fuse. Light up. So that is mindful speech and deep listening. And the fifth thing that we want to practice is called a mindful consumption. And we mentioned advertising before, and how everybody wants us to, advertisers want us to consume, and how shopping has become a pastime, something that we can forget our internal emptiness, our internal lack, and we buy things we don't really need, and we exploit unnecessarily our dear Mother Earth. So when we practice mindfulness, we know I don't really need to consume that. In Plum Village, when we sometimes teach the children program, we may take them shopping. And we ask beforehand, now what are we going to buy on the shopping trip? What do we need? And actually we wanted to make some kind of tree house or something, and we needed some nails. We had a hammer, we just needed the nails. We didn't have the right size nails. Did we need anything else? No, everything else we have plenty of. And so we wrote down on our shopping list nails. Maybe we need some water, but we wrote down water if we feel very thirsty. 2 things on the shopping list. And we said when we go into the supermarket, we will only buy those 2 things. Children will say, yes. But we can look at everything in the supermarket. We can pick up something and we can see where does this come from? How much does it cost? Are we really paying the poor farmer that produced this in South America or in Asia what this product is worth? And so that is called shopping meditation. You look at everything and you see how we are exploiting, and you understand and you feel compassion, and you will consume differently because of that. So these young people, called the Kalamaha, who came to listen to ask the Buddha, they said, so many teachers come, and they all tell us that their teaching is number one, and follow their teaching and everything will be okay. But if you follow somebody else's teaching, it won't be okay. So when we hear this from different people, who are we to believe? They all say their teaching is number one, but they can't all be number one. So what do you say? How can you help us, Lord Buddha? And the Buddha said, don't believe something because it's been handed down for many generations. Don't believe something because somebody famous says it. Don't believe something because everybody else believes it. And then gave other things, don't believe because of this. Only believe something when you have tried it for yourself and you see that it brings happiness into your life, brings happiness into the lives of others. And then the Buddha taught the 5 mindfulness trainings that we just mentioned. And then the Buddha said, there are people who say, yes, this brings me happiness in the present moment, but what about the future? And then the Buddha said there are 4 things. You practice right consumption, you practice right speech, you practice protecting life, and you have happiness doing that in the present moment. But how do you know you're going to have happiness in the future? You don't know. And then if you say you don't practice mindful speech, you don't practice right consumption, then you suffer in the present moment. If you say something that hurts somebody else, it goes out to that other person and then it bounces back and it comes back to you. You feel it. If you hurt someone else, you hurt yourself at the same time. And maybe you hurt yourself more than you hurt the other person. So, not practicing the 5 mindfulness trainings, you hurt others, and that hurt, it come back to yourself. So how do you know that that hurt you have in the present moment, it will also be there in the future? We know that there are certain things that we do in the present moment that will have an effect on the future. It's not difficult for us to see that. And we know that certain things that our ancestors have done in the past, they had an effect on the way things are now. So that is possible to see. But the Buddha said that even if you don't know that you will go to heaven if you practice the 5 mindfulness trainings, it doesn't matter, because you see that in the present moment it has a wholesome effect on yourself and on those who live with you. And even if you practice wrong things in the present moment, we don't know whether you will go to hell or not, but you will see that how it hurts you and it hurts those that you live with. So those are the alternatives, that we have happiness, and it's only happiness in the present moment, but it doesn't have an effect on the future. We have suffering, it's only suffering in the present moment, it doesn't have an effect on our future. Or we have happiness in the present moment and it does affect our future. Or we have suffering in the present moment and it does affect our future. that is maybe one of the deepest teachings of the Buddha, is dwelling peacefully in the present moment, dwelling happily in the present moment. Drishtadharma, sukhaviharin. Drishtadharma means what we as human beings in our present life can be in touch with our six senses, our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, a body and mind. That is the present moment. That is our present life. Drishtadharma. And then the next thing is sukha. And sukha means happiness. And the last thing is viharin. And viharin means to dwell, to abide. So it's not the happiness that is to cover up the suffering, but a deeper happiness that comes from our awareness. So we have accepted through our meditation that maybe the human species is not going to survive this precarious situation. Maybe life on Mother Earth is not going to survive this precarious situation. We have dealt with our anxiety about that. In fact, we have enough nuclear weapons to wipe out life on Earth many times, not just once. So there are different reasons for being anxious about our future as a species. But with the practice of mindfulness, I am doing all that I can to help life on Mother Earth continue, to help the human species develop into a Homo conscious. And I cannot do more than that. And another thing is that I have recognized that I am a child of Mother Earth. I no longer see that I am separate from Mother Earth, so that I know that whatever Mother Earth has to go through, I have to go through it with her. And so I am committed to go through what Mother Earth has to go through with her. So when I speak like that, I use the word I. But in fact, I am not a separate self. And maybe we should use the word we, it's better. So we belong to a community. And I know that on my own, I cannot do very much. But as a community, we can do many things that an individual cannot do. So we need community. We need to do we know that there are people who feel like us, who are mindful like us, or at least who aspire to be mindful. We cannot be mindful all the time, but that is our deep aspiration. We want to do that, and we want to do it together. So Thich has said that there is nothing more precious than brotherhood. Nowadays people say than siblinghood. Fraternité. And maybe from one point of view, our mindful consumption is going to help Mother Earth. But it's not enough. If we do not have brotherhood, that is, I use the word in a wide sense, that is in a global sense. If we do not have what Martin Luther King called the beloved community, that global community, we cannot do much to save our human species and life on Earth. If we still divide ourselves into small nations who look for the best thing for my nation at the expense of your nation, how can we survive as a human species? So we need community. And our community in Plum Village is not perfect, so please, I'm not advertising it. But as you heard, we come from many different cultures. We come from many different backgrounds, different education, different everything. But all the same, we manage to live together. Of course, we need ways to do it. It's not just natural that we shave our head, put on our robe, join the community, and everything is fine. We fall out with each other, we disagree with each other, and we have to do something that is called beginning anew with each other. When I am upset with you, when you hurt me, I need to be able to come to you and say, "Dear sister, I'm not feeling so good now. This morning you said something that made me feel really hurt, and I'm still feeling hurt, but I need to talk about it." And you write a little note like that, because you know that if you talk about it now, you will say something you will regret later. Give her the note and she will say, "Dear sister, I'm happy to meet whenever you want." And then we will sit down together, and she say, "Please go ahead and share," because I was the one who got hurt, so I am the one to share first. So by now I'm feeling better. She agreed to be there. It's already good enough, really. I'm feeling much better now. So I say, "Dear sister, it actually happened on that morning. We just had a meeting, and then you said something like that, and I felt really bad about that." And she listened deeply, and she looked at me. And she listens, and then when I finish speaking, she say, "Dear sister, I didn't realize that I said something so hurtful. I'll be more careful in future." And then she won't say any more than that, because if she says something like, "Oh, you misheard, I said something completely different," it will be like pouring cold water over me. I just did all I could to express my hurt, and then you say, "Well, it had no basis." So don't say that. She say, "Yeah, I'm sorry I hurt you like that. That's enough." And then a few days later, she will say, "Oh, do you have a moment to sit down, have tea?" We sit down and have tea, and she said, "You know, the other day, you thought I was saying that, but actually what I was saying was, no. And she'll explain. And then both of us will feel happy. So anyway, we have these kind of difficulties, and we have to deal with them. Otherwise, they get push down, and one day, boom, we go off like a bomb, huh? Because you've said it 3 times already, and I cannot take it anymore. So anyway, but you have a community in London. It's called the Heart of London Sangha. I think that is a very good name. Huh? London needs a heart. Our human species needs a heart. Our world needs a heart. And if we can be one of those cells in that heart, it's already very, very useful. Yeah. But on our own, we cannot do it. We have to be a heart in a community. And we have different kinds of community. Plum Village is one kind of community, but we have Buddhist precepts and things like that, and celibacy and other things. You may not want to join that kind of community. So you have a different kind of community. Or you do things together. You go on demonstrations together. You go on fasts together. You do non-violent resistance together. And of course, you dwell in the present moment together, but you have to plan these things. Huh? If you're going to do a sit-in, you have to plan it. And then you have to sit down with other members of your community and decide how you're going to do it. And if I say, before I come to the meeting of our planning committee, and I think, I know exactly how we're going to do it in my head. This will be the best way to do it. So we sit down together, and then, to my surprise, somebody else has the completely different idea. Exactly how we're going to do it before the meeting. So there's a way we can do that. Listen deeply to that other person. And then I think, yes, actually, I can drop my idea. That idea is much better. And then I say, thank you for sharing, but I'll just add a little bit if we could, in addition, do this. And she says, oh, yes, that will be good too. And then we have harmonious meeting. But then there are 4 or 5 of us, it's not just 2 of us. But another thing I can do is, she has an idea exactly like this. I have an idea exactly like this. She says her idea, and she stick to her idea. I say my idea, and I stick to my idea, and we, yeah. And so that is, maybe think, maybe I'll go and join another community. But that is not the best thing, because we make a commitment that we will stick to our community, that we have committed ourselves to. It's like if you are 2 partners and you have conflict, but in that blessing ceremony, you made a commitment that you would stay together for a very long time. So you can't say, okay, divorce, like that. You have to find a way. And that is deep listening and loving speech. But one thing that I have learned after being in community for quite a long time is that the harmony of the community is more important than the ideas. So that means that I am, even if I feel my idea is right, is in accord with the Buddha's teachings, in accord with what Thai said, if it means disruption of the harmony in my community, then I will drop that idea. So because our community is something very precious, it is the place where we can come together to make a collective energy that can change the situation. If you have one person doing something to change the situation, they won't be able to do very much. But say that you add 10 more people, that do something together with a collective energy to change the situation, it won't be 10 times 1. It could be 50 times 1, because the energy will grow exponentially. I'm getting old. I think I'm losing. Yeah, exponentially. Yeah, and so if you're 100, again it will grow. So I think Jesus said, even if 2 or 3 are gathered together, then it's better than 1, and 2 or 3 can grow. And I think something that Etty Hillesum wrote in her diary is very beautiful. And above all, I am grateful that I feel no rancor or hatred, but instead a wide acceptance, which is by no means resignation, along with a kind of understanding of our times. So Etty Hillesum was very young in Holland in the time of the German occupation. She was a Dutch Jew. She was eventually murdered in Auschwitz. But I think that is very helpful for us now. We're not in that situation. We're in a precarious situation, but this kind of acceptance, which is by no means resignation. So it means that if you discover that you have some serious illness and you're able to practice, you accept, it doesn't mean that you give up. It doesn't mean that you don't take care. Maybe with that kind of acceptance, you take much better care of yourself, take much better care of your body and your mind than if you have worry. And the same is true with taking care of Mother Earth. With that kind of acceptance, which is by no means resignation, that maybe that the human species will be wiped out, become extinct. Maybe life on Earth will be wiped out. It doesn't mean to say that planet Earth won't continue. We have another 7 billion years if we... And Mother Earth can always... she's recovered from so many disasters already. 25 million years to recycle, nuclear waste. But we have 7 billion years. of Father Sun still being there to support life on Earth. So anyway, we don't know. But with that kind of acceptance, we will do our very best, and we will be in a position, our body and our mind will be healthy enough for us to be in a position to do our very best to take care of Mother Earth. And maybe we feel that we can sacrifice quite a lot in order to be able to do that. And that is because of the positive seeds that you have received from your ancestors who are supporting you in this. And the Buddha also said, the number of people who practice the 5 mindfulness trainings is small, and the number of people who don't practice them is much larger. So we cannot expect to be meeting people that are like us all the time. But our strength is that we do things together. Then we organize ourselves as a community. That is our strength. Just like the ants, they are very small species, but they have they do everything together. And so they have a lot of ability to withstand